This week, Hooker and Lee each try to gain the upper hand as the Confederacy tries to break Grant's hold on the throat of Vicksburg. First thing this week follows up on last week. Full General Robert.E.Lee is trying to move his forces through Maryland into Pennsylvania and then decapitate the Union. In order to do so, he needs to keep the Army of the Potomac in place long enough to get a good head start. To do this, he left his 3rd Corps under Lieutenant General Ambrose P. Hill to deceive Major General Joseph Hooker to believing that the Army of Northern Virginia was still in Fredericksburg. On the 3rd, Lee left his encampment, heading north, and rumors spread of his doing so almost immediately. These rumors reached Hooker's ears, who decided to test the validity of them by sending out his 6th Corps under Major General John Sedgwick to test the Confederate positions. As the sun rises on the 5th Vermont and 26th New Jersey advance against the Confederate positions. They are turned away by heavy gunfire. Sedgwick tries to dislodge the rebels by using artillery, but to no avail. He crosses over in boats and charges the Confederate rifle pits, capturing them along with 35 men. They send these captives back and advance further, but upon entering the forest, become disorganized, and a volley and artillery shells sends them back. The Confederates won this battle, losing 6 killed and 35 captured, for a total of 41 casualties, the Union suffering 57. Sedgwick reports to Hooker that the enemy is at Fredericksburg in force. This isn't convincing, as Hooker keeps on getting reports of Confederate cavalry in Culpeper and Lee by the Orange and Alexandria Railroad. Then let us turn our attention westward to the siege of Vicksburg. Major General Ulysses S. Grant has his firm grip on Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton's throat. He has been serving Vicksburg for weeks, and its fall is all but guaranteed. The loss of the important city would be disastrous for the Confederacy and must be prevented. President Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy orders General Edmund Kirby Smith to break the stranglehold of Vicksburg. General Smith's Trans-Mississippi Department is stretched thin and can't spare much to dislodge the massive Army of the Tennessee under General Grant. He gives the operation to Major General Richard Taylor, who commands a single division of 5,000 men. Taylor believes that he can strike the supply line of the Army of the Tennessee, he could possibly save Vicksburg. He also believes he requires more men. Smith says no and has full faith in him. Where can this supply line be cut? Well, the last reports of the supply line suggest Milken's Bend is a major supply depot and not well defended. Maybe they could sever the link there. The Rebel Division moves in position on the 5th, and Taylor realizes that the supply line has been moved to the Yazoo River, out of his range and impossible to break with 5,000 infantry. Still has a job to do, though, and sends Brigadier General Henry E. McCullough with his 1,500-men brigade to strike the Union at Milken's Bend. The Union commander in charge of Milken's Bend is a Colonel, Hermann Lieb, a Swiss immigrant. He is the colonel of the 9th Louisiana Infantry, Colored. The area has been turned into a training ground for colored troops, and a brigade has been raised. They're made up of African-American regiments. On the 6th, Lieb got word of Confederates in the area and requested reinforcements. He received an Iowa regiment and the USS Choctaw. This comes handy because on June 7th, the battle is had. The conflict begins at 3 in the morning, with Union pickets being pushed back to their defensive works on top of the first levees. Rebel Texans advance up to the Union, where they receive a ragged volley from the untrained colored soldiers. McCullough sees on the fact the opponents before him are untrained and moves into a charge. You can't reload in time and it becomes a melee. The Union falls back to its second line of defenses as the Confederates continue their push, yelling that no quarter shall be given. Battle again falls into close quarters, but just as the Texans reach the top of the levee, the USS Choctaw opens fire into them, forcing the rebels down. The battered rebels defy their leadership and refuse to attack again. McCullough asks for reinforcements, but none are given. At 9 in the morning, another Union ship is seen, and the Confederates break off from the engagement. The Union won, but at a steep cost. 101 killed, 285 wounded, and 266 captured or missing. Those Africans captured are sent into slavery. The rumors spread of their execution. The Confederates were much luckier, with casualties of 44 killed, 131 wounded, and 10 missing. The other planned Confederate assault at Young's Point doesn't even happen, falling back upon witnessing Union reinforcements. What else? On the 9th is the Battle of Lake Providence, and I shall just quote directly from the U.S. government. In conjunction with the attacks on Milken's Bend and Young's Point launched on June 7th, Confederate General Richard Taylor ordered a strike against the federal enclave at Lake Providence, Louisiana. Colonel Frank Bartlett meaning a force of 900 cavalrymen crossed Bayou Macon on June 9th and pushed on toward Lake Providence 48 hours behind schedule. Reaching the bank of Lake Providence 6 miles west of their objective, Confederate cavalrymen encountered 2 companies of the 1st Kansas Mounted Infantry at Bayou Baxter. Federals withdrew toward the town of Lake Providence, crossing the bridge over Tanasis Bayou, then destroying the span. The Kansans took position along the stream bank. They were reinforced by the 16th Wisconsin and the black troops under Brigadier General Hugh T. Reed. To have a strong Federal presence, Bartlett formed line of battle and advanced toward the bayou, while a 6-pounder gun was moved into position near the present-day clubhouse of the Lake Providence Country Club. Confederate pioneers boldly attempted to rebuild the bridge. Union sharpshooters, however, forced the cannoneers in Brigade to withdraw, and after a brisk exchange of musketry, in which few troops on either side were injured, Bartlett ordered his men to retire. Confederates lost 2 killed and 5 wounded in this brief affair, while the Federals reported only 1 man wounded. Thanks, National Park Service, for saving me the headache. Now, back to the east. God, I can't hook or stop Lee. As we all know, the Army of Northern Virginia under full General Robert.E.Lee has slipped from its encampments. Though, while we know that, smarties, Major General Joseph Hooker and the Army of the Potomac are blissfully unaware. On the 8th, Lee and his cavalry commander, Major General J.E.B. Stuart, conducted a grand review of 9,000 or so horsemen under Stuart's command. The 9,000 men are in 5 brigades. Brigadier General Jones' brigade is the first made up of Virginians. Brigadier General William H. F. Lee, or Rooney Lee, is the second. Brigadier General Wade Hampton's 3rd brigade is a mismatch of units from the lower south. Brigadier General Fitzhugh Lee's 4th brigade is currently under the command of Colonel Thomas F. Munford, as their commander is sick. The final brigade is North Carolinian, under Brigadier General Beverly H. Robertson. Let's turn our attention to the Union, which has had a change of command in the Cavalry Corps. Major General George Stoneman is out, and in his place is Major General Alfred Pleasenton. Pleasenton divided his 11,000-man force into 2 wings, Brigadier General John Buford's and Brigadier General David Gregg's. Hooker can see that Confederate cavalry is in the area of Culpeper, and this means a raid is imminent. A raid that must be stopped. Pleasenton plans a double envelopment of the enemy, Buford in the north and Gregg in the south, who should converge on Brandy Station. The order to move was given to Pleasenton at dawn on the 8th. They move in close, but the battle will happen on the 9th. 4 a.m., Union camp. The men are woken without the regular bugle call to ensure the enemy hears nothing. After a reconnaissance mission to ensure that surprise will be had, Buford crosses Beverly Ford, ready to pitch in and destroy the Confederates. As Buford's men cross, they hear 2 pistol shots. Damn it! Advanced Confederate pickets have found them. They continue their crossing, but are soon hit by accurate pistol shots. The battle has begun. The Confederate skirmishers fall back. Buford begins to deploy his men. Major General J.E.B. Stuart is awoken. He has already put himself at a disadvantage. So few men were guarding the fords. Yes, fords. Gregg's crossing is south at Kelly's Ford, and the artillery. The closest units to the Union is the horse artillery. Stuart has to work quickly. General Jones' Confederate brigade is holding near Beverly Ford and is ordered to hold the Ford Road. Stuart orders his camp to be moved to Culpeper Court House, leaving his adjutant general on Fleetwood Hill. He scrambles his forces to either move toward Beverly Ford or hold Kelly's Ford. Colonel Benjamin Grimes Davis, a Union cavalry commander, is nearing on Stuart's artillery with his 8th New York and 8th Illinois cavalry. They spot the rebels and, fearing a trap, slowly advance towards them. This allows time for those heavy guns, which would be such sweet prizes, to slip away. As Confederate cavalry moves to meet them in battle, the 6th and 7th Virginia meet the 8th New York in a clash of sabers and close-range exchange of pistols. The 8th New York is forced back, but the advance of Buford's wing also forces the Virginians to retire. But one sees an opportunity, a single Union officer trying to rally the 8th New York. The 2 men charge each other. The Union slashes with the saber. The Confederate ducks down, swinging under the horse's neck, readies his pistol, and shoots at point-blank range, hitting the Union officer in the brain. Grimes is down. Buford's wing is in disorder. The 8th Illinois is fighting with multiple Confederate regiments. Their commander is down. The day is too damn hot. Confederate shells come striking in. Buford throws infantry to stop the Confederate onslaught, and cavalry rallies around the gallant Illinois, with New Yorkers and Indianans, I think that's how you say it, who forces the Confederates back to G House Ridge with their artillery. 7 a.m., Buford makes a dangerous call. Those Confederate guns must be taken. To do this, the order is passed down the chain of command to Major Robert Morris Jr., who has 5 companies of the 6th Pennsylvania. He will lead the charge, first followed by 2 regiments, but in the end, only one is allowed to follow. They advance, disciplined against raised heavy guns and the remnants of Jones' brigade. But as they break through the trees, they see that Jones has rallied his men with the help of Hampton's brigade. 2 regiments against 2 brigades. They unsheath their sabers and gallop towards their doom. Valor and bravery never before seen as shells burst around them. They reach the artillery, but are countercharged and forced back. Never rode troops more gallantly. Let's turn to Buford's left, currently being held by Colonel Honest Tom Devon. He, with 1,000 cavalrymen and a bunch of infantry, hold the Ford Road, but they're constricted by those Confederate cannons, holding their own artillery at bay. Confederates, after decimating the 6th Pennsylvania, decide to turn their attention to Devon's line. They in holes and even capture some Confederates, but they're unable to do much from this line. Buford tries again to push down and link up with Gregg, charging a stone wall up on U Ridge, but he is forced back, ready to be defeated whole when the Confederates pull back. What? Gregg has arrived. It is very late, but that did him some good. Not enough, though, to make up for it. And he's able to circumvent Confederate forces and move straight towards their heart. He moves a brigade towards Fleetwood Hill to break the chain of the Confederate line. The dream of the Confederacy is coming to a close as the Union advances up the hill, but Confederate artillery holds them at bay until men of Jones' brigade arrive. Then another brigade of Union cavalry arrives, matched by another Confederate brigade. They charge and countercharge as the 2 sides clash with sabers. Union deploys artillery, and in the end lose the hill and their guns. They are forced to go their own way, fleeing the hill. Gregg reports to Pleasenton that he is outnumbered and Confederate infantry is coming. Only the first part is correct. But Pleasenton believes him and ends the battle. The Union lost around 900 casualties to the Confederate 600. Some say it's a draw, more say it's a Confederate victory, and a few a Union victory. All I know is that the Confederates held the field, and the Union didn't. The last thing this week is a raid. Brigadier General John Hunt Morgan has 2,460 men and a wish to bring the war to the north. Full General Braxton Bragg believes this to be foolhardy and a pipe dream. Morgan has free reign in Tennessee, but on no condition is allowed to cross the Ohio River. On the 11th, Morgan ignores orders and takes his forces heading north from Sparta, Tennessee. 2,462 men and 4 artillery pieces will destroy the Union's heartland. Then there is Sickles. The city of New York has learned of General Lee's attempted invasion. Dan desperately wants to return to his corps. This is a repeat of Antietam, and there is no way he'll miss it again. But our hero's still sick, and the army has no use for a sick commander. He must bide his time to return to health, and in the meantime, stick close to the news. That's where the week ends, and let's focus on Milken's Bend and Brandy Station. Milken's Bend was the repulse of a Confederate breakout attempt, but even if the rebels had won at the Bend, they would have still lost at Vicksburg. So what's the point of it being in the conclusion? Well, the African Brigade performed beautifully, and the news of their valor spreads. Then there's Brandy Station. It might have cost the Union more than the Confederates. Yeah. It's still a victory for the Union in one way. Brandy Station made the Federal cavalry. Up to that time, confessedly inferior to the Southern horsemen, they gained on this day that confidence in themselves and in their commanders which enabled them to contest so fiercely the subsequent battlefields. With Lee's plan discovered, with his cavalry meeting its match, can the Union defeat the so far indestructible commander? Yes. Will it? Hello, it's the entire Civil War week by week team here. And this week was a little difficult. For those of you who don't want any spoilers for a conflict that happened over a century ago, please turn away. But for those who do, Gettysburg is coming up, and that is really strained what I can cover. I hope you enjoyed the Fleetwood Mac jokes about Brandy Station, because it was my best hope to stay on top of things. If you're at VidCon, I will so graciously visit you there, as I also hope to go. In the meantime, please like, comment, subscribe. Unless you're already subscribed, then you'll unsubscribe and I hope to see you next week. Thank you.